Custom software development company, 10 criteria that separate the best from the rest. Custom software development company, 10 criteria that separate the best from the rest. That's what we're tackling today. If you've been wondering about custom software development company, stick around. Next up, let's talk about why choosing the right custom software development company is so hard. The market for software development services is crowded, and every vendor website says the same things: agile delivery, deep technical expertise, client-focused partnerships. None of it means anything without evidence. The core difficulty is structural. You're evaluating a partner before you've seen them work. You're buying a process, not a product. The output depends entirely on the people, practices, and judgment calls that happen behind closed doors during development. For businesses in the Microsoft ecosystem, this challenge is more specific. You need a .NET development company that isn't just capable of writing C#, you need one that understands the full picture: ASP.NET Development Services patterns, enterprise application development architecture, cloud-native deployment on Azure, and the modernization pathways for the legacy systems you're almost certainly carrying. Let's talk about next up, technical foundation, the first 3 criteria to evaluate. A strong technical foundation is the baseline. These 3 criteria establish whether a vendor can actually execute at the level enterprise software demands. Not all .NET development companies have equal depth. Some have strong C# skills but limited Azure experience. Others handle web applications well but stumble on complex data integration. The baseline you need is a team working across the full .NET stack daily: ASP.NET Core for APIs, ASP.NET Development Services for web applications, Entity Framework for data access, and Azure Services for infrastructure and deployment. Ask for specifics. "We've delivered 40 .NET projects" is not evidence. We migrated a logistics platform from ASP.NET MVC5 to .NET 8 minimal APIs, cutting API response time by 40% and eliminating a synchronous bottleneck that was causing production timeouts during peak load is. The difference between those two answers is the difference between a generalist shop and a genuine specialist. Now, next up, modernization capability, criteria 4 and 5. For any business running applications built before 2018, modernization competency matters more than greenfield development skill. The installed base of .NET Framework applications represents enormous amounts of business-critical code that needs a clear path forward, and the vendor you choose for that work carries significant risk exposure. Legacy app modernization is not a technology problem, it's a risk management problem. A qualified custom software development company will have a defined process for assessing, planning, and phasing modernization work. Not just a willingness to rewrite it in .NET 8. The Strangler Fig pattern is the established approach for legacy .NET Framework modernization. New functionality is built as separate services that progressively replace the old system piece by piece, without a high-risk Big Bang cutover. A vendor who leads with "well, rewrite everything in 6 months" rather than "let's map your system's dependency graph and risk tolerance first" is selling confidence they haven't earned. Now, let's talk about architecture thinking, criteria 6 and 7. Good code that is architecturally wrong will fail at scale. These criteria assess whether a vendor designs systems that survive growth, team changes, and evolving requirements, not just the first 12 months of production use. .NET Microservices consulting has earned a mixed reputation in some circles because many vendors sell microservices as the universal answer. A 15-person company running a 60,000-line monolith probably doesn't need 25 independent services. They need a well-structured modular monolith that can be selectively decomposed later when team size and deployment frequency actually justify the operational complexity. The right vendor asks the right questions first. How large is the team maintaining this system? How often do different business domains change independently? What's your current deployment frequency and on-call capacity? If a vendor recommends microservices without asking those questions, treat it as a warning sign. For a grounded perspective on when microservices genuinely make sense in the .NET world, see .NET Microservices Consulting, Architecture Patterns and Implementation Guide. Next up, delivery process, criteria 8 and 9. How a custom software development company runs its engagements matters as much as what it builds. Two firms with identical technical skills can produce wildly different outcomes based on how they handle communication, scope changes, and quality control through a project lifecycle. The best firms publish their delivery data, on-time delivery rate, post-launch defect density, sprint velocity trends, and client satisfaction scores. Most firms don't. That gap in transparency usually means one of two things: they don't measure it, or the numbers aren't flattering. Q Services publishes its delivery metrics, a practice described in detail in why we publish our delivery metrics. The ability to say our median post-launch defect count is X versus we have a rigorous QA process is the difference between evidence and sales copy. Ask for actual numbers explicitly in your RFP response requirements. Now, let's talk about Criterion 10, domain expertise and long-term partnership fit. The 10th criterion is the hardest to assess but often the most predictive of long-term success. Does this vendor understand your industry well enough to challenge your assumptions? Generic software shops build what they're told. Domain-specialized partners, with vertical experience in healthcare, logistics, financial services, or SaaS, bring pattern recognition that saves months of discovery time. They've seen how HIPAA audit logging works under real compliance scrutiny, how freight reconciliation exceptions behave at volume, how financial transaction replay requirements shape data architecture decisions. That knowledge doesn't come from reading documentation. It comes from having built these systems before. This also includes the partnership model question: is this a fixed engagement with a clean handoff, or an ongoing relationship where the vendor has accountability for post-launch system health? The best custom software development company for an enterprise project isn't necessarily the one that writes the cleanest code at launch, it's the one that's still reachable 18 months later when the system needs to scale from 500 to 5,000 concurrent users. Next up, moving on to how to apply these 10 criteria in your vendor evaluation. Turn these criteria into a weighted scorecard before your first vendor conversation. Assign weights based on your specific situation. If you're running a modernization project, criteria 4 and 5 carry more weight than anything else. Building net new enterprise software on a greenfield foundation? Criteria 1, 3, and 6 dominate. Operating in a regulated industry like healthcare or financial services? Criteria 9 and 10 become primary filters before anything technical gets evaluated. Request a written technical approach document, not a slide deck presentation. Ask vendors to describe how they would approach your specific problem, your actual constraints, your actual legacy stack, your actual compliance requirements. The quality and specificity of that document tells you more about genuine capability than any client logo list. Ask the same question to every vendor in your shortlist: walk me through a .NET framework to .NET 9 migration you completed in the last 18 months. What were the hardest dependencies to untangle? The range of answers will immediately reveal who has real hands-on experience and who is reciting migration documentation they read last week. Let's talk about now. Conclusion. Choosing the right custom software development company comes down to evidence over assurance. The 10 criteria in this guide give you a practical framework for separating firms that say the right things from firms that can demonstrate them with specifics. Technical depth across the .NET ecosystem, structured legacy app modernization processes, sound architectural judgment, transparent delivery governance, and genuine domain expertise are the factors that predict project success. Not team headcount, pricing tier, or website design. For businesses in the Microsoft ecosystem, prioritize partners who can discuss ASP.NET Development Services, .NET Application Modernization, and Enterprise Application Development Architecture as a connected, integrated conversation. That kind of joined-up thinking is less common than it should be, and it's worth paying for when you find it.